September 1st. It's a Friday at 7:33
Friday.
a.m. in Maui, Hawaii, and we are in this 4039 or 4037 transit,
Yeah.
fourth line. So we're in 40 in the sun. That is deliverance and aloneness, which is the point of transition between struggle and liberation. Line 4 is organization. You want to check and see if we have an exaltation or detriment in the transits? So the exaltation is the power to transform and the intuitive intellect to select and organize for the purpose of maintaining deliverance. The power of the ego when organized and active to maintain separateness. Detriment is an uncontrollable zeal that ignores the quality of support in preference for the quantity, which in the long run may destabilize deliverance. The empowering of the ego through the capacity to organize others. Magnificent. All right. No exaltation or detriment.
Strange dreams.
Wonderful. So exaltation, we're talking about the power of the ego when organized and active to maintain separateness. And in the detriment, the empowering of the ego through the capacity to organize others. So this ego is really just more so about organizing yourself as opposed to feeling like you need to organize others, which one of my teachers back in the day, he was like, oh, if you blame everybody else for the problems in the world, then you have to send everybody else to therapy in order to solve your problems. And I was like, oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It's much easier to just work on yourself. So you gonna get the I Ching out?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Y'all ready for this?
Oh, y'all ready for the big toe?
So 9 in the 4th place means deliver yourself from your great toe. Then the companion comes, and him you can trust. In times of standstill, it will happen that inferior people attach themselves to a superior man, and through force of daily habit, they may grow very close to him and become indispensable, just as the big toe is indispensable to the foot, because it makes walking easier. But when the time of deliverance draws near, with its call to deeds, a man must free himself from such chance acquaintances with whom he has no inner connection. For otherwise the friends who share his views, on whom he can really rely, and together with whom he can accomplish something, mistrust him and stay away. So yeah, it's about finding the companions that are as reliable as your big toe, because you can't walk without your big toe. Or you can, maybe. It just makes it a lot easier when you got the people with like-mindedness. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also, again, it's like the ego is the center of the tribal network, right, in human design. And the tribal network is like literally the people that you can touch. I always say it's the people who you would either jump in front of a bullet for, that's defense, or the people who would eat better if you were eating better, and that's ego. And so there's a tendency to think that, at least for myself, to think that the ego in the heart center is like, very much so about being seen by others and delivering for others. But with this one, it's really just about, at least gate 40 is about being able to provide from a full cup, which is a principle in Reiki of, like, when I teach people Reiki, I teach them how to fill themselves up with their aura and fill themselves up with Reiki. And then when that cup overflows, that overflow is what is given to others. And that's where it looks like this gate 40 is teaching us, is because we've gone through recuperation, resoluteness, humility, and now organization, which, again, the keynote there is like power of the ego when organized and active to maintain separateness. Is that possible to do for a projector? Fill themselves with their own aura? Yeah, totally. Like, just because you have a penetrating aura, if there's like nothing to penetrate, then naturally you're going to start penetrating nature and the world around you. And so one of the things that, like, my projector partner, she's a splenic projector, and I often invite her, like, hey, I'm going to take the baby. You just be alone. She's even right now, she had her mom come down and take the baby for a little bit to just get some alone time. And true for every type, that they can fill themselves up, but the alone time is super important for the non-sacral projector, manifester, and reflector. But it's going to how you say that overflow and maintaining that overflow, I would say probably for a projector is going to be the most challenging, because naturally they'll be shooting that energy outward. And it's also tricky for a projector because there is the tendency with the conditioning of a projector to give more than it is asked for. I think that's in general, there's a tendency to give more than is asked for. And so it's really, as a projector practicing Reiki, as opposed to like a reflector who my aura can kind of like open and close, for a projector, it's really important to know when enough is enough, which ultimately means really doing a lot of work on the sacral, because the undefined sacral doesn't know when enough is enough. And so it requires that extra layer of discernment to have that. So lovely, wonderful question.
Yeah. And we're in the line of to always rely on them. You just got to know which ones are going to serve you best and have like-mindedness.
Yeah. That's funny too, because I remember when like there was a point when Facebook, like they limited, you were only allowed like 200 friends, and then they removed that cap. And I remember I was building like a network marketing business at the time, and I was like, this is dumb, this is lame. And now I'm like, man, it's crazy that we're even able to be followed by more than 200 people, or we're able to follow more than 200 people, because the mind can only handle like 200 relationships. And that's why a lot of you're starting to see infrastructure fall apart, because you can't care about thousands and thousands of people. You can say you care, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to take care of like, the 100 or 200 people that are closest to you. And that's where we're kind of moving towards in the whole 2027 shifting of the world cross, is we're moving away from larger infrastructures and more towards smaller groups, which is funny because COVID unintentionally, I mean, not that COVID itself had an intention, but the circumstances really created tighter bonds for me. It really made things clear around like who was actually my people and who was not really my people, just based off watching like who made what choices. So and this channel, again, this channel is all about community and bargains and things like that. And so, not to say that the bargains are going away, but they're going to be much more person to person, and they're going to be sealed with like some kind of touch or handshake, which is, I like it a lot. So gate 37, the family, friendship, manifestation, micro and macrocosmically of the organic nature of communities. Line 4, leadership by example. Any member of the family may take on leading the role through exemplary behavior. Exaltation is the manifestation of the highest principles in everyday and practical affairs, the possibility of the highest principles in all relationships resulting in a leadership role. Detriment is a conservatism that generally only accepts the leader of the father, who may or may not be valued role model. The possibility of being insensitive to the leadership of anyone other than those accepted by tradition. So this is really interesting because, we have that in our government at large, which is this like tradition of doing things. But ultimately, it's like you look at, and I don't know if this is true, I'm not a biologist, but someone was once telling me about wolves and how wolves, sometimes their alpha will be the strongest, but sometimes their alpha will be the smartest or the eldest or the one that knows the most, or they choose their leader based on practical qualities and what is most needed at the time. Because if you always just have a leader who is the father archetype, Sometimes it's a time of nurturing and making babies, in which at that time you would want the matriarch to lead. You would want the woman to lead because she has the natural tendencies to mother and nurture and all that. And so, this one is calling into, again, leadership by example. It's really calling to the forefront, like, who are you following? Why are you following them? And do they have the capacity and the behavior to lead you to the place that you actually are headed? Or are you stuck in these frameworks of what has only worked in the past? Which 37, again, it's solar plexus energy. So a lot of how you say, moving emotions, around like leadership. And then you combine this with Gate 40, which what was the keynote on that one? Organization. Again, the separateness and the discernment that we're looking to create within human design is so much about leaning into your own strengths and finding others who have strengths where you may have weaknesses, which is so important. So again, today with the transits, there's an opportunity or a window to consider how your organization is separating you, and that's delivering you. And then also consider, again, what positions of leadership are appropriate for which people. Combination.
All right, 6 in the 4th place means she is the treasure of the house, great good fortune. It is upon the woman of the house that the well-being of the family depends. Well-being prevails when expenditures and income are soundly balanced. This leads to great good fortune. In the sphere of public life, this line refers to the faithful steward who measures further the general welfare. Yeah, a faithful steward would be like person who takes care of the land, person that like helps grow crops, I think, in that way, and then also just stewards the community in a way as well.
She is the treasure.
But she is the treasure, yeah. The woman of the house.
I mean, woman of the house, but then also like the house that is the woman of like Mother Nature in a way, being like the treasure. And so again, community, like yesterday we were talking about something about a cow, like taking care of a cow and how the cow like feeds you. Same thing with the chickens and the lamb, but tending to aloneness, 40, and then tending to that which feeds us, that which allows our family to thrive. The organic thriving of a family is ultimately based on their location and their resources. And that's one of the things, like, we're seeing infrastructure fall apart on a massive scale. And that's inspiring a bunch of people to like plant gardens and like secure their own food, because really we don't need a lot of the stuff that we think we need. We really just need water and food and shelter, right? And then through that, the only way to truly acquire that in any kind of like diversified way is to have a family that tends to that. I like it.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Thank you. Eaching time.
Do some coin tossing.
All right, so now we're going to toss some coins, and we're going to catalog a little guiding eaching for us today.
Great or young.
And it's fall, by the way, guys. 9/1/23.
Definitely feels like fall here.
Greater young.
Yeah, greater young. It's like totally cloudy, kind of rainy energy.
I love it.
Greater young once again.
Oh.
Yin. Greater yin. Greater yang.
So many changing lines.
Whole lot of changes. And yang.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got is that lake under splitting.
Lake 61. Inner truth.
Oh.
61. Okay, so we've got the lake below the wind, the judgment of 61, inner truth. Pigs and fishes, good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great water, perseverance furthers. Pigs and fishes are the least intelligent of all animals and therefore the most difficult to influence. The force of inner truth must grow great indeed before its influence can extend to such creatures. In dealing with persons as intractable and as difficult to influence as a pig or a fish, the whole secret of success depends on finding the right way of approach. One must first rid oneself of all prejudice and, so to speak, let the psyche of the other person act on one without restraint. Then one will establish contact with him, understand and gain power over him. When a door has thus been opened, the force of one's personality will influence him. If in this way one finds no obstacles insurmountable, one can undertake even the most dangerous things, such as crossing the great water, and succeed. But it is important to understand upon what the force of inner truth depends. This force is not identical with simple intimacy or a secret bond. Close ties may exist also among thieves. It is true that such a bond acts as a force, but since it is invincible, it does not bring good fortune. All association on the basis of common interests hold only up to a certain point. Where the community of interests ceases, the holding together ceases also. Also, the closest friendship often changes into hate. Only when the bond is based on what is right, on steadfastness, will it remain so firm that it triumphs over everything.
I love how these like play into the transits. It's like the
Yeah.
same message, just
Yeah.
like driving it home.
Yeah, it's the influenceable. Learning how to influence somebody who is not willing to think the same way that you are.
Right, which is like not actually influencing them, but letting their influences become apparent, and then discerning whether or not like you even need to influence. Is what I was getting.
Right. Yeah. What up, Prana?
You. All right. Want to read the image? Yeah.
Wind over lake, the image of inner truth. Thus the superior man discusses criminal cases in order to delay executions. Wind stirs water by penetrating it. Thus the superior man, when obligated to judge the mistakes of men, tries to penetrate their minds with understanding, in order to gain a sympathetic appreciation of the circumstances. In ancient China, the entire administration of justice was guided by this principle. A deep understanding that knows how to pardon was considered the highest form of justice. This system was not without success, for its aim was to make so strong a moral impression that there was no reason to fear abuse of such mildness, for it sprang not from weakness, but from a superior clarity.
Oh, to forego punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So as that relates, it's like, as you're looking at community or your community with the hyper lens of the transits, this teaching that we're pulling here is kind of like, it doesn't necessarily always make sense to like deliver a harsh punishment if you don't have the community or if you haven't been giving yourself the alone time that's necessary for yourself. As a third line, I love that because it's just like, I know I'm prone to making mistakes. So if I have people around me who punish me for making mistakes, there's parts of myself that I have to like shroud, or I feel like I can't necessarily speak up. And that's also like a reflection of myself, like how harshly do I punish myself for the mistakes that I make, or the opportunities that I don't take, or opportunities I take that are not necessarily fruitful for me. So then that hexagram is going to change to earth underwater.
Earth underwater. Makes 35.
35.
Progress.
Okay. I feel like I have 35.
I think you do.
Progress.
Progress. Chin. Progress. Oh wait, that's earth below fire. That's what you drew, right? No. Do.
Is
Just
that water
kidding.
or fire?
That's water. I looked at the fire.
Oh.
Haha, 8. Holding
8.
together. You have the 8. Or no, do I have the 8? One of us got 8. One of us got 1.
I think I have 1.
P. Holding together. Union. Earth below water. The judgment. Holding together brings good fortune. Inquire of the oracle once again whether you possess sublimity, constancy, and perseverance, then there is no blame. Those who are uncertain gradually join. Whoever comes too late meets with misfortune. What is required is that we unite with others in order that all may complement and aid one another through holding together. But such holding together calls for a central figure around whom other persons may unite. To become a center of influence holding people together is a grave matter and fraught with great responsibility. It requires greatness of spirit, consistency, and strength. Therefore, let him who wishes to gather others about him ask himself whether he is equal to the undertaking, for anyone attempting the task without a real calling, for it only makes confusion worse than if no union at all had taken place. But when there is a real rallying point, those who at first are hesitant or uncertain gradually come in of their own accord. Late comers must suffer the consequences, for in holding together, the question of the right time is also important. Relationships are formed and firmly established according to definite inner laws. Common experiences strengthen these ties, and he who comes too late to share in these basic experiences must suffer for it if, as a straggler, he finds the door locked. If a man has recognized the necessity for union and does not feel strong enough to function as the center, it is his duty to become a member of some other organic fellowship. This makes me think of just all the rallying points that have popped up here on Maui and all the people who have stepped into leadership. And seeing how long they may last in the leadership roles if they can continue to have that holding together, being able to hold themselves together so that they can hold the community together.
Right.
That's like one thought. And then also what we're doing with Life Tenders and even what we're doing here with the Evolve Human Design Discord. Just like, how do we hold this together?
Well, if you look at that in context with this 61, it's like, and I always talk about this, it's like it has to hold itself together. Like I'm in a way I'm in a way I was hearing that and I'm like, oh, I'm at the center of this. And in a way, like I'm doing my best to kind of reflect and champion people and highlight all of the signature that I see in here of again, like I put in the rules, like this is not a safe space, especially for the not self. Yes, this is a good, especially that this happens in the this 61-8 happens during the 40-37 transit. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like holding together the family with inner truth and alone time.
Bro. Exactly.
Amen. Shall we read the image real quick?
Yeah, read the image.
On the earth is water, the image of holding together. Now that's keynoting. Prana, I had a dream about you last night. On the earth is water, the image of holding together. Thus the kings of antiquity bestowed the different states as fiefs and cultivated friendly relations with the feudal lords. Water fills up all the empty places on the earth and clings fast to it. The social organization of ancient China was based on this principle of the holding together of dependents and rulers. Water flows to unite with water because all parts of it are subject to the same laws. So too should human society hold together through a community of interests that allow each individual to feel himself a member of a whole. The central power of a social organization must see to it that every member finds that his true interest lies in holding together with it, as was the case in the paternal relationship between king and vassals in ancient China. We're all made of water. So we gotta hold each other together. Otherwise, we're just all gonna turn into sacks of rolling blobs with no bones and no muscles. So go to Hunter Biomechanics.
Yeah, practice your biomechanics, guys. All right, time for the dream.
This is all I really can remember, but I met up with you, Prana, at a Walmart, hopped in your car, and we ran this wild mission. And then you brought me back, and I gave you gifts, and then I got my car and took off. That was pretty much it.
Do you remember what gifts you gave them?
There was a cup, and then there was some like shirts and some other. There was like definitely a bundle of sage. Yeah, that's all I remember.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah, wild dreams.
Dragon's been having some wild dreams. Yeah, I mean, we had the full moon just a couple days ago. What was it, yesterday?
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. And I find that definitely my dreams are magnified quite a bit during the moon, which Prana was pointing out. If you look on the Rave Mandala about where the moon lands, so when the moon is in front of, or when the moon lines up with the current transit of the Earth, I think that's the full moon. And then when the moon lines up with the current sun transit, that's the new moon. Which I just thought was really cool, because it's like, I have this moon clock thing that tells me like the phases of the moon, but again, like nothing really exists in a vacuum, and everything exists in a vacuum. And so in a sense, seeing the geometry of it, being able to look at the moon in terms of like, oh, it's halfway full, so that means it's sun, earth over here, that means the moon is like right here. Just the geometries of everything is so beautiful. I love it.
Me too. I looked up the moon transit. It's in 25.5
currently.
Yeah.
Read it. This is the moon transit.
9 in the fifth place means use no medicine in an illness incurred through no fault of your own. It will pass of itself. An unexpected evil may come accidentally from without. If it does not originate in one's own nature or have a foothold there, one should not resort to external means to eradicate it, but should quietly let nature take its course. Then improvement will come of itself. That reminds me of what you told me your dream was. It was like no ill will of your own, because it just came into your sphere as a dream.
Yeah.
And then you were like, oh, well, no harm, because that was just a dream.
And I was still like not to like fuck up in the dream, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, exactly. I have dreams where it's like, oh, you could do some bad shit in this dream. And I'm like, none of like my moral compass is still strong in my subconscious. And I wonder also how much that affects like, because sometimes I feel like I tend to lean towards like lawful good. And then recently with like the whole heretic emerging, there's more like a chaotic good that's coming online.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to see like how that good transfers from like a lawful manner into the chaotic realms. And beautiful, beautiful life. All right, well, guys, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for joining us. This is great. Again, like I said, this has been my favorite transit so far, and we still got 2 more days in it. So I'm reveling in the defined heart energy. Again, just a reminder, like regardless of what transits we're moving through, regardless of what you see, here and happening in the world, the one thing that you can never get away from is your circuitry and your strategy and your authority. So always running what we say through that filter. It's like that's the original lens that you have is through your own circuitry. So the transits are just like lenses that get put in the way of it. And glass is like words in the sense that the things that it doesn't make clearer and more sharp, it makes blurrier and more confusing. And sometimes when the transits come in line, or when a person comes into line, they make something more confusing. And the tendency is to say, oh, this lens is garbage. Like, I don't like this lens because it's making things more confusing. However, again, with the transits, like that lens is going to be there for, the 6 days that the sun and the earth are transiting, or for the moon transit. And, so you can't really take it away. You can just understand, well, is it blurrier in the sense that it's making me hyper focus, or it's making me focus less, right? And so you can use the distortion as a means by which of again, further discerning yourself and further differentiating yourself within the context of infinite possibilities and whatnot. So cool. Peace, guys. Love you.
Bye.